Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this budget workshop to order. Today, we will be hearing from Public Works or our Streets Department, as well as Stormwater and Water. Stormwater.
Just stormwater.
Okay, sorry. Stormwater. Okay, thank you. Did you have anything, Peter?
Yeah, just that this is an important presentation, and what was not included in the proposed budget was a discussion on the street user fee. But since we presented the budget on the 25th or so, numerous council members have talked to me and have talked in public about a street user fee. So Ernie has it today, and we'll discuss it today. And that's really, we didn't recommend it, but the council's asked us about it. A majority has, so we're going to present it today, and it's something that the council can deliberate on. So that's included as well in this presentation.
Great.
Okay. Ernie's going to present today.
Before we start, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Council members Roland Rivera, who should be online.
Here.
Thank you. Sylvia Campos.
Here.
Eric Cantu. He is planning to join us online soon. Gil Hernandez. Here. Kaylin Paxson. Present. Everett Roy may be joining us later. And Councilmember Mark Stott may be joining us later as well. Carolyn Vaughn. Here. City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Present.
And City Attorney Miles Risley. Here. All right, Mayor and Council, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you. Ernie?
All right, good morning, Mayor and Council. Lagarza, Interim Assistant City Manager. With me today is my Public Works team. I have Assistant Directors Manuel Hernandez, Jason Alvarez, Renee Couture, our Public Works Engineer, Design Manager, Connie Garcia. Additionally, I have my budget team here, Bobby Ray. She's our Finance Manager of Public Works. The Public Works Department is comprised of 3 funds. So we have our Streets Fund, which is what we call the 1041 Fund. We have the Residential Streets Fund, which is Fund 1042. And then also I'll be talking about the Stormwater Fund after this presentation. So I'm going to start off with our streets. First of all, I want to talk about some of our achievements at Public Works. In 2025, the Public Works Department accomplished several achievements. I'll go over them individually. The Public Works Department is progressing in alignment with established timelines, and we're confident that we'll complete fiscal year 2025 rapid pavement program by end of the fiscal year, enhancing roadway safety, accessibility, and overall quality for our residents in our community. On November 5th, 2024, voters approved the City of Corpus Christi's Bond 2024 program for a total of $175 million with 38 projects. Bond 2024 Prop A Streets projects included a total of 18 projects with an estimated cost of $89.5 million. One project funded in Bond 2024 was a $35 million residential street program. This Bond 24 residential street program is the first ever bond delivered within 7 months from election to construction. Achievement number 3, last year, City Council approved a package for improvements to our city's traffic management center. This package included the purchase of radar devices, mobility platform, and integration services from Iteris, Inc. These purchases were aimed at improving mobility on city corridors, and the goal was set to finally address signal coordination along Staples Street, one of the city's most congested corridors. With assistance of the Iteris engineers, city staff was able to deliver by improving mobility on Staples Street from McCardle Road to Oso Parkway. Travel times were reduced by up to 2 minutes in the AM peak and 3 minutes in the PM peak hour. In addition to Staples Street, improvements were also performed along Airline Road from Ocean Drive to Saratoga and along Rodfield Road from SPID to Yorktown Boulevard. Timing adjustments along additional corridors are planned in the upcoming year. This chart illustrates our proposed budget of $143.9 million compared to last 3 years, which is an 11% increase from fiscal year 2025 adopted budget. Over the past 5 years, there's been $695 million allocated to street improvements. This does not include fiscal year 2026. This slide provides a different view of the previous slide, but provides you with the same information. For the street maintenance fund, there was a 30% decrease, $54 million to $38 million. For the arterials and collectors fund, there was a 47% increase, from 42 million to 62 million. And then finally, for the RSRP fund, there was a 34% increase from 32 million to 43 million. And this sums up the total of the $143.9 million proposed to be allocated towards streets in fiscal year 26. This is just our bubble chart that shows our fiscal year 2026 proposed budget for street maintenance and reconstruction. Again, is $143.9 million, and this shows you the revenue sources. All right, so now we're gonna switch gears and go over our pavement condition index results. So as you recall, we go and score our roadways to get our pavement condition to see the improvement from all the work that we have done on our street network. So here is the timeline to give you the history. Condition index is collected every 3 years. The timeline below shows a recent history of the past 3 years. In 2022, PCI data was collected, and for the first time, we collected 100% sample of our road network. This data was used to reprioritize what was first known as the Infrastructure Management Plan, 2022 year to 2026 year, and currently the Rapid Payment Program, 2024 to 2028. If you recall, we did not take away IMP commitments already on the plan. We shifted strategy from the legacy, the complete reconstruction approach, to the payment only, and we move all the streets with PCIs of 0 to 10 to the front of the line and push higher scored roadways to the end of the plan. The RPP plan streets go up to 2028. This 2025 PCI data will be used to add to the plan years 2029 through 2031. This, however, is dependent on the budget slides that we'll discuss here shortly. All right, so our city's current network now totals 1,267 centerline miles with 169 miles of arterials, 217 miles of collectors, and 881 miles of residential streets. These represent 13, 17, and 70% of our network overall. If you note, our residential street total is close to 900 miles. Residential streets make up a majority of our network, which is why this network is prioritized for repairs. Okay. I think I'm missing a slide. Hold on. Next slide. The remote's not working. Okay, here we go. So this right here is our overall network, broken down by district. And the order looks a little different, but I'll work with what I got here. All right, so this table shows the distribution of residential street road work completed and planned in each district up to 2028. Okay, so the grand totals show centerline mileage received per district. As you can use this data to make the correlation between individual district pavement condition and the amount of mileage received per district. So if you look at those grand totals, I want you to note that that's the amount of work that's either completed or planned from 22 all the way to 28 per district. All right, so your individual results for PCI scoring by district is shown in this summary. All the district residential street network scores improved in the residential streets. Also note that 2 of the 5 districts reached PCIs above 70, which is great news. And I'm confident that our RPP strategy will have our PCIs go above 70 in the next couple of years if we keep up with the same improvement. Okay, so this right here is just a memory jogger. If you recall, we had talked about setting this goal from the 373 centerline miles. That's the amount of residential streets that were in need of reconstruction that had a PCI score in the range of 0 to 55. And so we had previously calculated that it would take us 62 years to complete that much road work at the rate that we were completing the work when we were doing the complete reconstruction at 6 miles per year. All right. On the left is the calculation that showed the 62 years it would take to repair 373 centerline miles at approximately $1 billion if you had $18 million funding per year. When we started the RPP, we recalculated the amount of time it would take to repair 373 miles at the 2024 funding level of 31 million. And so this came out to the 12-year mark. Without the street maintenance fee, our funding levels for residential streets will drop to 16 million. Recalculating our repair rate of 16 miles per year will yield a completion time of 24 years at $384 million overall. All right, so this slide here, this shows our funding shortfall, mileage versus year and RPP funding. So I'll explain this graph. The y-axis shows the centerline miles repaired, and the x-axis shows the fiscal year. Each data point also shows the budget for the individual year. From 2021 to 2022, residential street budget was 18 million, which repaired about 6 miles per year. So those are those two dots on the left of the graph. In 2023, we went to the pavement-only approach and executed a change order with Bay to start the program early, repairing a total of 21 miles of residential streets. From 2024 to 2025, we use unspent fund balance to increase our budget to 31 million, repairing 30 miles of residential streets per year. In 2026, shows the combined budgets, including the bond 2024 program, with an anticipated 40 miles of residential street repair. In 2027, the residential street budget will drop to 16 million, which will repair 16 miles per year. And this is approximately $15 million shortfall from the previous planned budgets. It's important to note that with the $16 million budget, new streets cannot be added to the new plan RPP until 2030. Since the current RPP is planned with a budget of $31 million per year, also a new analysis will be needed to see if the $16 million budget is enough to outpace PCI degradation. So we have degradation catching us, and we're trying to outpace that, that number, which used to be approximately 12 miles a year back in 22. Okay, so as some of you all may recall, back in December of 23, the street maintenance fee ordinance sunset, previously generating roughly $12 million per fiscal year. As I just mentioned in the previous slide, in order to maintain level funding to complete an RPP residential streets program of 31 centerline miles, a $31 million budget is needed. As such, with the sunset of the street fee at the end of 23, street funding was reduced by roughly $12 million annually. In order to get back to level funding, we need about that $15 million mark to hit the program budget. Next. Re-implementing the street fee at $5.38 rate and 9 months revenues would generate approximately $9 million. As you have seen in the previous slides, the current anticipated shortfall is $15 million. Additionally, the fee was never adjusted for inflation. Working with our consultant, Raftelis, a fee of $6.67 would generate the $15 million to handle the anticipated shortfall in 2027. Provision should be made to allow for adjustments to increase costs in the future. This slide shows a comparison of reestablishing the street fee at the current rate of $5.38 and 12 months and revenues versus 9 months of revenues. And if we work towards providing level funding to continue the same level of service for the rapid payment program, a rate increase would be needed. A rate of $6.67 would generate the $15 million of revenues over a 12-month period in order to generate that shortfall that we had showed in the graph earlier. All right, so in conclusion, we have a total of 143 centerline miles that we will be completed by November of 2026. For fiscal year 27, RPP centerline miles per year will be reduced by 15 centerline miles for residential streets. Fiscal year 27 and 28 were planned with a budget of 30 million per year, and that's in the current RPP. With the new budget of 16 million, we cannot add new streets until 2030. Beginning in 29, a new 5-year plan will be based on the budget of the 16 million if we don't have an increase in budget. And then re-implementing the street fee would allow us to recover that cost and get back to our $30 million budget year plan, which is currently how the RPP is planned today. Okay. I was tasked to bring together a potential sidewalk plan, and these next slides will cover that sidewalk plan. So right now, as you recall, okay. So right now, our current ordinance, chapters 49 and 53 are the ordinances explaining that the abutting landowner is responsible for sidewalk maintenance or trees that cause obstructions on streets or sidewalks. Our sidewalk program priorities. The first priority, before discussing a plan to build sidewalks, I would first ensure that our current sidewalk design criteria, standard details, and specifications are updated. This proposed plan is unique in that, like the RPP pavement-only approach, we would not completely rebuild an entire neighborhood section from bottom up. We would be coming in with a scalpel to replace old sidewalk. All right, so our challenges to this program, some anticipated challenges of working in brand new sidewalks on top of old infrastructure are tie-ins of new sidewalks onto very old driveways. Other challenges would be to tie in to new sidewalks onto old ADA ramps or non-existent ADA ramps. Also, there would be many lead sidewalks and potential encroachments. And so these pictures just kind of, based on our research, if you look here, these are some of the challenges that we anticipate with the sidewalk plan. If you look here on the left, we would have to tie into that driveway, and you would have new sidewalk tying into that resident's old driveway there. Of course, we would have potential ADA requirements there in the middle. And in some instances, the ADA ramps do not exist. And then on the right, we do have lead sidewalks that go to the front door, and of course, encroachments. So we would have to remove and replace that chain link fence so that we can get our formwork in there to do any kind of sidewalk replacement work. Also, in a lot of neighborhoods, we do have landscape that we would have to remove and replace. Again, trees very near growing to the sidewalk, and then encroachments by either fencing or more landscape. And then here, again, pretty aged trees would be at risk here with the root system. And so trying to provide the ADA compliance, the width of sidewalk, these are just some of the challenges that our designers are going to have to work with. And then it's not just the old sidewalks. We also have issues with brand new sidewalks not meeting the requirement of longevity. You see the for sale sign there. We do have sidewalk that is starting to fall apart, either because they're coming on the property after the fact to build houses, or because the water cement ratios in the concrete are such that it disintegrates before it was supposed to. Our sidewalk network, our metrics here for our data, overall, we have about 1,500 miles of sidewalk. This only includes existing sidewalks, and this number does not include city right-of-way where sidewalk is needed. And then there's also a breakdown per district. And then this is the cost. When our design engineers would break down this cost, they would look at the lead sidewalk work, they would look at the sidewalk itself, potentially curb work, driveway work, sod if it's not tied sidewalk, or ADA ramps. We included design in this estimate in case we had to use a consultant, and we're looking at about $800,000 per block, and that's an average 1,500-foot block in any neighborhood. And like I was explaining to our city manager, we really couldn't get away with just doing one side because both sides are more likely going to need work. So we would have to go in there and work on two sides if we were to pick a road to work on. Conclusion here is that we would definitely review our sidewalk ordinance to make sure that it's consistent with any sidewalk plan that we would put together. I would need to review the IDM, the standard details, our specifications, because this is going to be a new type of construction approach. It's not going to be a complete rebuild or brand new infrastructure. We're going to go in there and maybe piecemeal in sidewalk where there's old infrastructure. So those standards really don't exist. And then we don't have an assessment, we just have an inventory. So we'd have to come up with a prioritization method for selection. And right now, I would recommend sticking to, if we're going to replace sidewalks in the residential area, I would recommend sticking to the rapid pavement program list as a prioritization method. We would go to the end of list and then work our way backwards. What we don't want to do is work on sidewalks where we have brand new streets that had just been paved. And then again, you know, that's a preliminary cost, but that's the worst case scenario where you're replacing a lot of old sidewalks in a very old neighborhood. All right, and now I'm going to go and shift gears and talk about developer participation. This right here is, and I'll explain how this money is used here in the next couple of slides, but I'll give you the background. So on September 10, 2024, City Council approved $3.6 million for developer participation for fiscal year 2025, and this has to do with streets and bridge work on new developments. On July 21st, 2025, Development Services sent out a project call, and Michael Dice is here also to help us out here, but he had the project call, send it out to the builders and groups for any potential participation needs for fiscal year 2026. And so the way it works is once we have this money available for developer participation, Development Services, they initiate the project, they do their reviews within the department, that's the plat reviews, the public improvement reviews. Once everything it meets the requirements of the city standards and Development Services finishes their procedures with the developers, then we bring it to council for approval. Now, this is a breakdown of last year's monies and then what we need this year. So in fiscal year 2025, there were 5 projects approved by City Council for developer participation funding for a running total of about $2.5 million. There are 3 more projects pending council consideration for September. If all projects are approved by council for funding, the city would have committed $2.9 million, and that leaves a total remaining estimate balance of $736,000 to be rolled into the fiscal year 26. And then for fiscal year 26, the new amount that we would need to meet the future development demand for participation is approximately $2.8 million. Requirements for public improvements are found in Article 8 of the UDC. Examples of public improvements include streets, water, wastewater, stormwater systems. And per the UDC, participation funds may be used to fund street projects and right-of-way or other improvements. However, for drainage crossings, the UDC states that the city shall participate if the ultimate bottom width exceeds the 15 feet at the bottom of the ditch. With regards to streets, the developer is required to construct local streets, 50-foot right-of-way, and C1 collectors at 60-foot right-of-way. The city's master transportation plan designates the ultimate right-of-way for collector, arterial, and freeway segments and their alignments to create an efficient multimodal system. If the plan designates a higher classification than a C1, the city has the option to require the developer to build up to a C1 or construct an oversized street. If the city requests oversized street, then the city covers the difference in cost for the C1 collector, and that's where these funds come in. For drainage crossings, developer constructs a drainage crossing 15 feet or less. The cost is shared between developers if they're abutting both sides of the land of the drainage crossing. However, if the width exceeds 15 feet, the overall cost is shared between the developers and the city. The city pays for oversizing, and the developers split the difference of the cost to build the 15-foot portion. So that's a brief explanation of why and how we use the participation monies. And then these slides just give you some indication of the cross-sections of what I just read to you. The local street cross-section, the C1 collector. If we want to oversize, and it's going to look like the cross-section on the right. And then here, same thing with the 15-foot or less where you would have no participation, and then if we want to participate for a bigger structure, or we would have to participate for a bigger structure if the bottom is 15 feet or more. And so that's the intent of the program. And so we would keep up with development if we had these funds to supplement. Stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Ernie. Ernie, why would the city use certificates of obligation for these streets, the developer streets, rather than a trust, for example, like the water and wastewater?
So I can answer. Before we had an instance where we used operational funds, and we don't have money for using operational funds. But right now, the method of funding the participation has always been through debt.
Through debt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think that's something we should consider. I want to go back to the street fee. So the street fee was thoroughly, in my opinion, evaluated by staff 2 years ago. And at that time, it was recommended as the best path forward to some degree, because it wasn't recommended that we don't sunset it. And so we moved forward. And so this information would have been nice 2 years ago, but that wasn't presented 2 years ago. And so there may be other reasons why, during our budget process, other things that came up. But I just wanted to make that clear, because I believe that was unanimous vote, and it wasn't going against anything you guys were recommending at the time. Personally, I believe that, taxes and fees such as, what was it, $5.38, I don't think those are permanent solutions. I really don't. I think, we need to consider up here, how do we work with what we have? And that would be, for example, we could do $24 million in every bond that goes to do the same thing, right, the RPP program. But I realize this is what the workshop is about, is how do we go about working with what we have, or, for example, in this case, making up for this. But again, that was something that 2 years ago wasn't an issue, and now it is. So I just want to make that clear, because that vote was, I think it was unanimous. Yeah, right? It was unanimous, and no one gave us the information we are getting today. So anyway, that's that. Secondly, my question, let's see, I've got the book here, the budget book, and Ernie, it's the operating book on, I'm referring to slide 6, the street maintenance total, which is 38 million, but in the operating book on page 268, you have expenditures of 46.7. And I just noticed that's kind of a big difference. I was just wondering why that is. Can you stop the clock? Because I've got a few questions. Yeah.
What page in the budget document?
269, 268.
260?
Yeah, it's a difference, 38 million. Well, if you look at slide 6, the one with all the bubbles.
Right.
Can't see.
Right.
268.
Okay, so I'm going to try to explain this one.
The street-
We had the $35 million bond, and what's not shown here is the $8 million for bond that was going to be used in this fiscal year. So we of the 35, we're taking 8 this fiscal year and then showing the 20 or the delta in the next fiscal year, but it's not shown here.
The 46.
Yes, ma'am.
So the 8 million, okay. Is there, we probably should show it, so it doesn't look like a,
Right. It looks like it's, I hear what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, I noticed it and thought, let me ask about it.
That's a good question.
Okay, if you go to 185, this is similar in nature here. Let's see, 185. Is it in this book? Might be my other book. Okay, it's the other, the proposed capital.
Okay.
So the proposed capital book on page 185, let's see here. The numbers just didn't quite match up on your type B funding for streets and the CIP type B. You have 4.5 million for new type B, and then CIP type B is 6 million. Is this right? Yeah. So there's a difference in the book versus the slide.
Good morning,
Hi.
Mayor. Amy Cowley, Director of Management and Budget. In our proposed CIP book, you won't see funds allocated from the new Type B revenues yet because we have not established those plans yet.
Okay.
But we are reflecting it in that chart as available revenue to be used for streets.
Okay. So they're just not reflected?
They're not in the proposed numbers yet because we're still working on that plan to execute.
Okay. Very good. All righty. So I'm going to go back to the operating, page 267. The RTA, I noticed that there is an additional 6 million estimated from the RTA this year. Page 267 is showing RTA street services contribution budgeted was 3.1 and expected is 9.1. That's a big difference. Can you explain that? Which is great.
It is great. Actually, our finance department did a really great job of reconciling those agreements from prior years, and we were able to get caught up on prior year revenues in FY25. And then we'll be billing FY25's revenues as well. So we'll have multiple years of revenue in FY25.
What do you mean by caught up?
There were 2 years of past payments that were had been delayed.
Oh.
And so they've been recorded now in
Why was that?
FY25. That I don't have an answer to, but I can follow up with you.
From the RTA?
Yes.
Okay, that'd be great. Also on page 267, there is an interdepartmental services that is 8.4. Looks like this is something new. What is that, 8.4 million? Or where's that coming from?
And actually, this ties into your first question. One of the changes that the department recommended for the FY26 budget is that they be able to complete residential street reconstruction in-house. And so there is a transfer from the residential street reconstruction funds in order to complete in-house work for residential street reconstruction.
Okay, okay, great. Thank you. I will move on. Councilwoman Campos.
Okay, so I guess page 12 of the slide. I just wanted to point out the District 2 of all the districts, like I've been, stating, we do have, I believe, still, the worst streets. It's a grand total of 69.8, 23%. The residential streets planned by district, you did, okay, residential streets work completed plan. I think I had asked, and I want to make sure that we are still focusing on the worst streets. And I know this is your workshop. I mean, you can't provide all the slides, but is there something that is provided for the residents to see that where all the streets and their PCI is shown, right? That they can see that, okay, so I just want to make sure that we are and that it is transparent. And that, I've been saying that District 2 has the worst, but could people be able to see that if they were to see it in a graph or in a, I guess on a worksheet, I guess, is what I'm asking. Is there something like that already?
Right now, what is online is the rapid payment.
That's what I was looking.
Yeah, what's online is the plan itself and the anticipated streets plus the pavement condition index data. That's retrievable online. This presentation will be online.
Right, but I really am looking, I guess, more for detail, but like I had said before, I'm kind of behind the curve. I am grateful that that you included the presentation for the sidewalks, and I think we've had a lot of conversations about the sidewalks, and And it's not anything new, so other cities have been doing it, and I have been asking you, have you reviewed the program, for example, in San Antonio or in Austin? Have you had a chance to do that?
Yes, ma'am, we have.
And what was the conclusion?
Well, honestly, what we took from that was that council members pick sidewalks, and they're given a budget. Each council is given a budget, which I think it's odd because they pick sidewalks rather than staff, is what the last I checked. I would recommend a more transparent approach, very similar to the rapid payment program. But like anything else, really, what's holding us back is funding. Quite frankly. We don't have a lever to pull. We just had a bunch, as a matter of fact, last night at planning, and then from what I understand at District 1, a lot of concerns on Rand Morgan, for example, with the school and lack of sidewalks, and that being a TxDOT facility. But, I get the same calls for Flower Bluff and for London. And, my response is the same. I have no levers to pull. I'm an operations and maintenance department. I can prioritize, and then we can go to bond and get a bond project. But right now, there is no program for sidewalks.
Right, but I have also mentioned too that, we've had this discussion before, and you have said that the only way to move forward is to actually, again, to create that PCI that we would need for all the sidewalks, right? But I've been saying we should not get stuck because I believe a number that you have mentioned is $1 million.
Right. And I wouldn't, with what we have right now, if, hypothetically, if we had a sidewalk program, I would recommend just using the existing prioritized approach, overlapping the rapid payment program, and then save yourself $900,000 that can go towards sidewalks.
Okay, so I'm glad that we've, come up with something a little bit better. I guess the other, well, that's all for now, and I'll let some of my other council members speak, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Hernandez.
Okay, a couple of things that you'd mentioned there. On the developer participation in the past, we'd usually included a section in the general obligation bonds for that particular purpose. It'd be like $1 or $2 million that was set aside in when we do a bond package for developer participation. We haven't done that in a while, and I think we've supplemented it with certificates of obligation as opposed to including it in the bond packages. Maybe we should revisit that in the next bond package cycle. Also, on page 17 for the RPP funding, that does not include any of the Type B funding, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
You're on slide 17. Yes, sir. Right
So,
now, that's just purely.
So like when reconstructing Huntwick or Bay Drive or anything like that does
That's a
not
separate
include it separate completely?
Yes, sir.
But it is still street work that's being completed?
That is right.
Okay. When we talk about the street user fee, it was created in order to get us a bridge until we can get funding from normal sources. It was never intended to be the full source of funding for residential or any street production. It was just until we get, and since that time, we've added the 1% of the general fund, which was done in segments at 1/3% each year per budget policy. I know this because I had many discussions about it with the city manager.
Sure.
We have 5% of the industrial districts goes to streets, and then 4 cents of the taxes. We have 2 cents out there that we've decided not to move forward with.
Sure.
I still think if we want to do that, we could still go to a referendum on that and see if we want to add those 2 cents. We chose not to do that. I would prefer to do it that way. And then also, we had a discussion on this about the budget policy on Tuesday between the 17 and the 20%. The nexus of that difference of those 3% is a little over $10 million. So this goes back to my question here. Is it why change that and then utilize that $10 million in production? I would rather use that $10 million for streets than let it sit in a bank account, not being utilized. So if we want to consider that, I would prefer doing that instead of adding a fee on somebody's utility bill that is already going to be increasing. You're going to ask for a stormwater increase, right? That goes on the utility bill.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay, so I want to make sure we're looking at with the eye of the customer that is paying for this and what they're actually going to be paying for and how much upward pressure is on our utility bill.
Understood.
So I'm hesitant to do it that way. I'd rather utilize funding that we already have to do that. Okay. I also want to ask you, last Thursday, I was going to a meeting over at the Del Mar College there on Staples across from Ray High School. And as I was driving down Costores, I saw stormwater guys cutting trees, trimming trees along Costores on private property. Can you explain why we were doing that?
We're going to talk about that in the stormwater. I can answer it now, whichever.
Okay, I'll wait till the stormwater that comes. Are we using any of our stormwater funds for street projects?
Stormwater funds for street projects, we are using.
Repaving or anything like that?
Say again?
Like repaving?
No, sir. No, we are using, the closest stormwater funds get to the street program is the curb transitions for ADA ramps.
Okay.
And I have a concrete team on stormwater side, so that's as close as stormwater gets to any street appurtenance.
Okay, and I'll get with Amy later on, make sure I understand. We have different, it doesn't say residential pavement program in the budget. It talks about street preventive maintenance program, $11 million street utility cuts for $8 million, and then street surface prevention for another $11 million. So that's more than what we're talking about here on the RPP, right?
Yeah, are you talking about 1041?
This is, no. Let's see, this one listed as 12,410, 12,415, and 12,420.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 1041. So that's, right, the orgs. Yes, sir. That's Manuel's program. So we do have the long lane utility cuts, the potholes, and base repair. So those overlap in there. And then, of course, the SP&P program is inside the 1041.
Said that as well. So, I mean, it doesn't quite convert over to what you're talking about in terms of the funding associated with that. And it's to what the mayor was saying about the total expenditures of $46 million, and you have a lot of things in there.
Right, yeah. So it's because it's all one bucket of money, and it's going to traffic, it's going to potholes, it's going, and we would really have to go and draw a really complicated picture to show you of that money, you know, what part of it gets siphoned out to the RPP program. But just as a rule of thumb, your RSRP is about 20 million. That's about 20 miles. And then in-house is about 8 million. So that's 8 to 10 miles. And then SP&P was the 12 million that got us the arterials and collectors. So this $8 million number that, you know, we were asking about earlier, what we did, let's just say state of affairs, when we go to the $16 million budget, what we're saying that $16 million budget is that 20 million is no longer 20 million in RSRP. It is now 16 million policy money only. No allocations, no transfers, no fund balance. That's the base budget. With that base budget, Manuel's going to have to pull 8 million from that 16 and charge to it and almost like do a service to the 1042 budget so that he can work on residential streets, which relieves 1041 budget that doesn't have any 1042 strings attached to it per ordinance, and allow me to work on arterials and collectors. So because I have to maintain the arterial system. I can't just focus on residential streets and completely ignore arterials. So that's how I'm going to do it. With the $16 million budget, I'm going to pull 8 from 1042. Manuel's going to work on residential streets, charge 1042 with our cartograph system, bookkeeping, and then relieve that money so that Connie could do the designs for SP&P.
So basically what you're telling me is you're doing budget jujitsu.
Exactly.
Okay.
100%. We call it gymnastics, but yeah, it's a version of that.
I've heard that.
I got you. I mean, you know, sometimes it doesn't translate over from budget to what you're actually
Right.
doing and how you're funding things within that budget.
Right.
Okay, so again, I'm not for the street user fee. I know you need funding. I think we have funding available. That policy change from 17 to 20% is that funding. So I'll leave it at that.
Can I just add one thing to that, Councilman? That would just be a one-time source because it's not recurring, the fund balance. So we would be, if you put up that line graph, we'd fix 1 year, but then the outer years would be, right.
Well, that could be a bond.
That, it's a requirement to have that funding.
Turn your,
Say again?
hold on, go ahead.
It is a requirement to have that funding, so you have the funding coming in. We've maintained around 20%, right? It's always been in that time, so if we maintain that funding, we're going to have to keep that funding in place. But we have the revenues coming in to do that, so.
Well, it assumes they come in. As an example, the state's going to reduce, they have the legislation proposed right now to reduce revenue growth from 3% to 2.5%. So it's just not, it's not as a recurring source as a fee would be, but.
Okay, and like I said, we have those 2 cents standing out there
Yeah,
that I've
right.
recommended for us to go back to the voter for.
Right.
To get that money, so
Yeah.
let's,
Well, I think, at the end of the day, it was, yeah, something like that. But at the end of the day, Peter, putting a fee back on, I mean, if that's the will of the council, I can't support that. But if that's the will of the council, it's the will of the council. That's
Right.
the way it works. I think you all need to bring back some, I mean, I'm sitting here saying, let's use our bonds, put $24 million on every bond to replace that 12. I realize that it's now, what, 15, 16 million? I mean, that your recommendation would be if you put a fee back on, you're looking
Right,
at
$15 million is
$6.
a shortfall.
That yields 15, 16 million. But at the end of the day, again, I mean, we need to work with what we have. Fees and taxes are not a permanent solution for anything.
Right.
And I agree with Councilman Hernandez. I think we need to look at everything we have to work with, Peter, and y'all should bring back recommendations saying, here's how we can fill this gap. I know it's difficult, but again, had all this been said 2 years ago, I think, we would have seen it a little different. And I don't want to sit here and belabor that.
Yeah.
But
We initially recommended it 2 years ago to continue it, and ultimately it was sunset
yeah,
by the
well,
council. But we recommended not only to continue it, but to increase it for inflation.
oh, right, the fee.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm just talking about the whole picture. But either way, thank you for that. I'm going to go over to Councilwoman Vaughn.
Well, I want to compliment you because I think y'all have done a great job with the streets. They've made so much progress, and the last thing I want to do is go backwards. And because that's what has happened in the previous years, they did absolutely nothing. So the worst thing that we can do is to sit here and say we're not going to do anything going forward so we can keep funding the streets, the residential streets. I don't know how we do that. I'm not for certificates of obligation. We've already had that conversation. But we have to do something. So I'd like some kind of recommendations. And I don't know if you're recommending the street user fee. Had I been on here, I would have voted just to leave it alone because it worked. And once you get rid of it and you bring it back, it's a problem. And that's for sure. But we have to do something. We cannot just ignore it and not have the funding that you need. Or shame on us. I heard yesterday, too, on Rand Morgan. And we seem to have that problem across the city. We have it on 624 as well, where TxDOT owns it, and the city can't do anything. Is there anything we can do to get with TxDOT? I'm sure y'all already have. I mean, I dealt with them when I was on Commissioner's Court for doing some stuff too, and they've been talking about doing stuff at 624 forever. But it just seems like they would work with the city, doesn't it?
Right.
But they don't?
No, they have their priorities, we have ours. And that's basically it.
Yeah.
But Ernie, we have worked with them on Rand Morgan, and in fact, isn't it under design?
Right.
Yeah, so I personally been in meetings, it's slow rolling, slow moving.
Yeah.
But probably 2 years ago, we sat down with them and said, look, Rand Morgan's a problem, it's your facility, you guys got to fix it.
Yeah.
You have to add lanes and especially sidewalks because of the new subdivisions and the schools.
Yeah.
So they agreed to do it, so right now, it's in design, Ernie, is that right?
Right, yeah, and I had a conversation with Jeff Edmonds on that. So the key to any TxDOT facility is that you design according to their standards. The problem is that TxDOT doesn't like utilities under the roadways. So what they would do is they would say, meet our standards, meet our quality standards in your design, and then have our utility accommodation requirements in there, which could require more cost where if it was a city right-of-way, we would put a water line under a road and we wouldn't think twice about it. TxDOT will say, no, move it off to the side, and then we have to pay for that amount of money. So we don't have construction dollars aligned. We're trying to do what we can as a city to push it because it's not our right-of-way. So we're working with TxDOT and say, well, we would at least design it. But at the same time, I'm explaining to Jeff that they have hoops that we would have to go through
Sure.
to meet their design requirements and then have an agreement with them before we would even go to construction.
Well, it sounds like the conversation helped with Rand Morgan. So maybe you could have one on 624, because we've actually had some deaths out there by not having sidewalks. There's been 2 or 3.
Is 624 Northwest Boulevard?
Yeah, as it goes past that one area,
Right.
77, that intersection there, yeah.
Okay.
So they've done nothing. They've had plans for years, and they've done nothing. They had
That one's that
plans
big.
when I was on here the first time.
Yeah.
We had all kinds of workshops, conversations. They have still yet to do anything, and that area is booming out there.
Yeah, that project is fully funded, and when are they starting that one?
Yeah, they're almost done. We actually had design reviews, so they're going to have a shared use path on,
That's good.
on one side and a tight sidewalk in front of the high school.
When does the construction start?
I don't have that date, but we can get.
We'll have to get you that, Councilwoman.
That's a $1 million question.
Yeah, we'll get that for you in response, but I think the project, it's an MPO-funded project, and it does include lane reconfigurations for safety, and especially that shared use path, as well as nighttime lighting. There's not enough lighting on there, so.
We've been talking about it for a decade.
Right.
Yeah.
I went to a community meeting on it that they had last year. or
Correct.
year
It's
and a half.
well on its way.
We gotta
Well,
find
and
out
you know
when
what
it
blows you away is they sit here and they wait until the traffic is so bad, it's going to have a huge impact. Had they done it 10 years ago, which I know it takes forever, I won't
Right.
stay on that soapbox. Does the city own the sidewalks?
We do not.
We don't own the sidewalks. So I'm looking at all the things that you have to do, and I'm thinking, how are we going to do all that? I don't know. And you don't know either, do you?
No.
But Sylvia, I would just kind of argue with just a little bit, because there's only 1% difference between District 1 and 2. So I think they're equally as bad because District 1 is bigger. And so, I mean, we've certainly got 1%, just 1%. So we certainly have to do something with the sidewalks. I just hope we can come up with some type of plan to start something. It sounds like you're thinking about that. You know what I want to talk about, though? I want to talk about that participation fund. Can you explain a little bit to me, because you said, so if the city requests an oversized street, we have to pay a portion of that?
Correct.
How big of a portion?
So the way it works is if the designated street C1 is $5, and then the oversized street is an additional $5, we'll pay the delta.
You pay the 5.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this the best program that we have for participation with the developers? Is this the best?
What do you mean by the best, Councilwoman?
I'm just saying, is there any other option so they
Well, we could
pay
not
more?
do it. I mean, some of these I see where we make them wide and then we end up coming back and put speed humps on them.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 years ago, I asked Development Services to kind of give me an assessment. Is it worth making wider streets only to have to come back and put speed humps because the traffic's going too fast?
Yeah.
So another option is not make them wide, not have these extra wide streets, or pay less, have the developer pay more, but they're not required to by state law, right?
Right. Or we would come later, right, and do it ourselves with a bond project. So I guess it's pay now, pay later type of deal.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Councilwoman Paxson?
Thank you, Mayor. I understand that it is, you guys have really gone through the budget and present to us totals. You present facts. You say, you know, if our desired output is X, then we need input Y, and this is what that map looks like. So I applaud the efforts in this presentation. I know it's no small feat. I'm sure you have emails and text messages and calls all day long, all night long about what you guys do, and you've been incredibly responsive. My hat's off to you. Thank you for that. But I am curious about how we can be creative to bridge these gaps and look at possible ways that we're not necessarily adding that other fee. You know, if we set a target that we have a fund reserve of 20% and we meet that, and then we say, okay, council, if we have a 20% in reserve, if we were to take 1% of that, what does that look like? 2% of that, what does that look like? 3% of that, what does that look like? That keeps us in that 17 to 20% range without adding a fee to the user, especially while we're still tackling some of the CIP cost that's going to hit ultimately our utility bills. It's all going to add up. And so to me, that is something I'm very interested in looking at more creative ways. But I do want to say that I see that y'all have said X plus Y equals Z. This is how this works right now. I was curious, if I look at slide 17, and I may have missed it if you addressed it, I apologize, where I see 24, 25, where your tog marks say 31 million, and then there's a short jump up to 51 and 26. Over to the far side, you're forecasting that we're going to lose that user fee, and this is the gap we'd have to close to get back to 31. There's kind of a very large gap between the 31 definition in 24 and the 31 definition in 27. Is there something additional that I'm missing under 24, 25? You see that 31 is way up there in that 50.
That's a good question. Yeah, no, excellent question. So 31 on the blue line is the planned amount. So we would plan, so for example, fiscal year 2027 RPP, let's just say we have 20 streets. Our estimated cost to do the 20 streets for that fiscal year is $31 million. What you're looking at in the previous years at the same amount is that when we bid our projects, the prices came in lower, so we were able to get more mileage, but it's the same amount.
So when I see that orange line, if you will, way up there in that 45, 50 range, and then it drops back down to a realistic 31 and the blue line, I guess I'm trying to be mindful of others seeing this presentation and seeing, oh my gosh, we're losing this huge orange gap.
Right. The drop is mileage, right? Because the goal for council or the priority I've been given is to meet the planned mileage every year. And so it's almost like a three-dimensional graph, if you will. You have the year, the mileage, and then the cost for that year. And so the 31 million, it's a good question because you got two things going on.
Yeah.
In the blue line, that's a planned 31 million. And then in the dot with the number, that's an actual number. And then that's the mileage we got for that number.
Okay, I see. You've got that little key on the far right
Correct,
with the
correct.
dots, and so you're actually covering more miles with that 31 because
Exactly.
you had projects come in under cost.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I was hoping I wasn't crazy.
No, it's a great question.
No, thank you for that. So also, I sympathize with Councilwoman Vaughn's comments about it increases our investment to go to these wider streets. But it's a juggle because I think we really need to be mindful of the development plans in each area because, for instance, we're looking out on the island. One of the big suggestions to make our mobility plan work, which works with our area development plan, is to basically, look at taking a whole lane off of some of our major roads like Whitecap, Sea Pines, and those would have some pretty substantial impacts on the traffic flow. Those areas get really congested. They're main roads there for us, and that's the reality we're dealing with. Do we lose a lane and increase golf carts, bikes, pedestrians? Do we keep 2 lanes and cut those way back? And maybe that's not a good road to travel on. And I know we use it for all of those right now, but that's always what kind of piques my concern when we're looking at these big streets. So to me, we just really have to be mindful of the long-term plan for that area before we say, are we interested in investing in a larger street? Because I think they do have long-range value.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Arnie, one quick last question, then we can move on. On page 268, 269 of the operating budget, you have a ending balance here of 4.5. That's Fund 1041 and 42. We were kind of talking about this, Councilman Hernandez was, and then you have the 7 million. These fund balances?
Right, you're talking about for proposed 25, 26, 4.5, and proposed.
4.5, yeah, and 7 million. I'm just curious as to why, yeah.
So your question is why?
Yeah, why do we have these? I mean, these just being that they're kind of high
Right.
reserves in these special revenue funds, instead of using that money towards streets?
We can check.
I mean, that's a high reserve, so who's
Right.
kind of in charge of
So
saying, let's make sure?
Well, I'll let Amy go on.
Sure.
Amy Cowley, Director of Management and Budget. I would just like to clarify, in our financial policy, we don't have a reserve requirement for these funds because they're considered special revenue funds. That said, for Fund 1041, it would be wise to maintain some reserve because we do fund staff and operations in Fund 1041. So it's wise to have some level of reserve in that fund. For Fund 1042, that $7 million would be available for us to utilize in future years, but it's not recurring dollars.
Right, but I guess my point is it's sitting there, right? And we have a great need for it, and so there is no rhyme or reason. So I think if, why wouldn't we create something, Peter, that says, I understand putting some, you don't have to, as mentioned, it's a special revenue fund,
Right.
but if we want to,
Let's
if we
also-
want to do that, I
If I
get
may,
it.
the base bids, we still have, for the 5 contracts, with Bay still is working on their bids for the last contract. So we
Right.
required on the
Yeah.
RPP that they came.
Maybe before you explain it, the summary is that the city teams and the contract crews that we have can only do so much a year. They're at maximum capacity. So even if we budgeted this $7 million, we wouldn't be able to put it into production because of this work. Because it's a time and motion thing. There's only so many contractors, only so many good working days. And so Ernie knows at this point that there's a maximum amount that he and the contract crews can spend, and we're at that.
Right, but we also got down, so just so you know, Manuel spent out what we used to be the NSOP. Remember, y'all gave us the NSOP money for the what we call the skin patch? We completely spent that out.
Okay.
So that went to zero. But the contract stuff goes a little slower. If it's in-house, we're going to spend it a lot faster. But this discussion with the finance team, when we use the term true fund balance and this number fund balance, but Connie tracks the delivery orders that she sends out. And so I can guarantee that every dollar is committed that's been budgeted.
Of the 7 million of the reserve?
Right, that's in the base.
And the 4 million. Well, I mean, but we need to know that. I mean, nowhere in there does it say that. And I know you guys are doing a great job, and
Right.
there is just no room for money to be sitting around. That's what that looks like.
Right.
You're saying it's not, I believe you, but then that needs to be somewhere,
Right.
We can't show that we have $7 million sitting there where you don't even have to have a reserve.
Right.
But it really isn't sitting there. I
Right,
understand that.
Yeah, and if you recall, remember, we were tracking the percent on the streets line for the operational monies, and it showed one thing, but we were physically complete out on the road, so all the paving was done for the year, but that number was still showing something like 30%.
Create another little line item that says.
Yeah, but
It slowly goes there.
yeah, it's going to take some coordination
Okay.
because some systems are, I guess, automated and some are Excel type stuff.
Right. Yeah, because if you do the math, that's 43%.
Right.
That 7 million is 43% of the fund balance. So if you sat there and said, really, so you're holding back, you're not, but 43% of more work that could be done, it looks terrible, and it's not, I understand.
Right.
But let's fix that so that it's apparent to all of us
Right.
when we look at this.
No, that's understandable. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you. I think that's all the questions. So now we'll go ahead and move on.
Stormwater? Okay, now this is our stormwater budget. And so I'm going to go over some achievements for stormwater side of business. Number one, we maintained the city's national flood insurance program. community rating score of Class 7. This achievement is huge because it directly impacts the community, as the rating offers a 15% discount for most national flood insurance policies issued or renewed on or after October 1st. This savings is a tangible result of flood mitigation activities our community implements to protect lives and reduce property. The second achievement here, as of 8/1, we've swept about close to 3,000 tons of debris removed from the city streets. That's equal to 324 dump trucks. And then the last achievement is we've implemented an operational shift in being reactive to proactive by utilizing the CCTV to identify issues in our drainage system. So before implementing CCTV, sinkholes were our first warning that we had a problem. So this helps us get ahead of that. Here, Public Works Department was initiated in 2021. The stormwater fee went into effect on January of 2022. These rates we are proposing for fiscal year 26. Here they are in Tier 1 is $869, Tier 2 is $1159, and Tier 3 is $2028. For fiscal year 2026, we are proposing $32.2 million budget for Stormwater Fund. The majority of the budget is used towards operating costs, with personnel costs coming in close to second at about 28%. So this slide illustrates the relationship between our stormwater debt and revenue over time. The y-axis represents the revenue in $5 million increments, and the x-axis shows fiscal years since the introduction of the stormwater fee. As shown, our expenses tied to debt have steadily increased over the past several years, creating a widening gap between revenues and debt obligations. To help understand the long-term impact, I have asked our finance team to analyze both current and future debt. The analysis shows that revenue increase is needed to sustain that growing cost. Currently, projections show that we need to increase our stormwater fee to cover our growing cost. So to put it in perspective, a fee increase of 1%, 1171 is projected for 27, followed by 4%, 1218, and in 28, 2%, 1242 in fiscal year 29. By fiscal year 28, street support debt will expire, reducing our obligation. However, incremental fee increases are still needed to ensure that we meet our mandated debt payments. To summarize, while debt levels have been climbing over time, proactive adjustments to the stormwater fee will be necessary to fulfill our debt payment obligations and operating cost. So I'm also going to go over our productivity numbers here. And these are the ones that you were used to seeing when we were generating our fee decisions. So these are the old productivity rates that were used to determine when we would increase the stormwater fee. And then we implemented Cartograph, and we have been able, since that implementation, to really assess and audit our lines of business. And the following slides show these findings. And so if you all recall, and we're going to talk about mowing here also, but we've used, up to this point, we've used pretty rudimentary methods to track our productivity rates in-house. So you're talking about binders, Excel sheet, checklists, nothing that's automated. In June 1st, 2025, we went live with Cartograph. So this tool was vital in that it automated our ability to track productivity rates that directly determine what stormwater fee would be from year to year, so we can track our revenues and expenditures real time. In addition to that, we joined in July 30 of 25, we joined CCW and Solid Waste and going live with Samsara. And so this is a live GPS tracking system that provides us with real-time visibility in our operations. So it improves our fleet productivity. It helps us track our work with customers. It helps us assess any theft, and then also gains visibility to our fleet. So if somebody deviates and goes somewhere where they're not supposed to, we can track that real time and put them back to work, essentially, with this Samsara software and hardware. So this is the result. So I'm going to give you a comparison of our productivity rates when we were using the old system of tracking and then the new productivity rates. And so here on the far right, when we say not tracked, we're gonna say we never took credit for these numbers. So this slide shows a comparison of productivity before and after the implementation of these software packages. So if you look at inlet cleaning and maintenance, this team is comprised of 5 vacuum trucks that regularly perform inlet inspections throughout the city. Pre-major rain events, these trucks are utilized to clear debris from known flood-prone areas. During rain events, these trucks focus on localized flooding caused by floatable debris. Then post-rain events, these trucks focus on dewatering whenever there's standing water in our neighborhoods. And so if you look at that number for inlet cleaning, our old productivity rate said that we were maintaining 15,600 inlets a year. That was not a fact. After we did our audit, we were maintaining 5,400 a year. And then if you look at the next minor channels, this operation consists of grading only and is mainly performed on an as-needed basis. And so for the minor channels, we have 235 miles of inventory of minor channels throughout the city. And right now, we use 3 grade-alls to operate. We are currently adjusting operations to be more proactive on a maintenance approach by regrading the entire ditch rather than just these localized repairs. And so on the minor channel, we were reporting 39 miles a year, where in actuality, we were only doing 15 miles a year of productivity on the minor channels. Now, on the major channels, we have 109 miles of major channels in the city. And originally, major channels was understood as just one operation on the old tracking method. In actuality, major channels consist of 2 operations, and one consists of either grading or mowing the bottom of the ditches with the long reaches, and then mowing the tops with slope mowers. A majority of our major channel operation consists of mowing, and grading is performed on an as-needed basis if we have a washout or we have high spots. And so if you look at major channels, we were only taking credit for 54 miles a year, when in actuality, we were doing 2,180 miles a year. And so that was after the audit. Our vegetative maintenance, or our mowing teams, previously reported numbers only included arterial streets, collector streets, and North Beach were not reported. Consistency. So with this system that we have, we've put polygons on GIS all over the city. Everything that we mow is now mapped. You have 1,255 acres total that we mow in the city. And so if you look at the frequency here, we mow on the arterial network 458 arterial streets 20 times a year, 779 acres on collector streets 12 times a year, and then 18 acres at North Beach and Ocean is what we do weekly. And so we were only tracking 9,160 acres on our old tracking method, but in actuality, we were doing 9,160 acres per year on the arterials, 9,348 acres per year on the collectors, and then 936 acres at North Beach and along Ocean Drive. Street cleaning is our street sweepers. This line of business has been on track with previous metrics that we have been showing in the previous numbers. The street cleaning base inventory is 2,056 miles, and that's one side. So imagine one side of the road and then extended for 2,000 miles. That's what that represents. And so we have 8 sweepers, and then we have 5 on order to get the 13 total that our original goal was based off of. And so we are sweeping on the residential streets 6,824 miles a year, where before we were only reporting 5,000 miles a year. On the collector streets, we're sweeping 2,412 miles a year. Originally, we were just taking credit for 1,600 miles a year. And then on the arterials, we are sweeping 1,788 miles a year, and we were only taking credit for less than that, 1,490. So our numbers are from the audit are showing much higher results. Flood control management, that's This line of business has never been tracked but performs operations vital to downtown area. This is a 24/7, 365-day operation that requires 6 employees to constantly maintain and ensure functionality of the Kenny and Power Street pump stations during any rain event. So there, we have 6 employees, and you're looking at 8,760 man-hours per year. And we weren't tracking that, but that was something that the stormwater fee was going towards. In addition to that, we also have trash collection systems at those locations, and we're collecting close to 2 tons of trash a year, intercepting before it ends up in the bay at those 2 pump stations. And then the last line of business is our environmental services team. This section has a team of 5 environmental tech 1 positions and 2 environmental tech 2 positions. This section plays a vital role in maintaining compliance with the city's municipal separate storm sewer system, or the MS4 permit, by conducting construction and industrial inspections. The team monitors, inspects, and enforces regulations to prevent stormwater pollution from construction sites and industrial facilities, ensuring that best management practices are in place. And so here we've had 6,000 inspections in 1 year for Tech 1s and 720 special inspections from our Tech 2s. And so that's less than what we were taking credit for before in our previous metrics. And so that's a comparison of the audit results when we went live with Cartograph, so that we can make sure that that stormwater fee is going to very specific lines of business. So in conclusion, fiscal year 26, stormwater fee will sustain operational expenditures through 26. But after analyzing debt service, the stormwater fee will need to be increased in 27 to account for combined operational expenses and the debt service. And then beginning in 26, new productivity rates will be tracked annually to assist with determining the stormwater fee rates moving forward. So using these systems, we can really increase productivity and then work to decrease costs, but we weren't tracking those very closely, so we really couldn't make those adjustments. Now we can.
Okay.
Stand by for any questions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Ernie, do we do cost of service studies? Or do we conduct any of this similar to what I think we require CCW to do, just to determine that we're recovering an equitable cost of service?
No, not that I recall.
Do we do that? We don't do that?
Well, I mean, in stormwater, you referring to, Council,
Yeah.
Mayor?
I mean, if this audit is that's what we're doing. I mean, so before, so I guess the answer is no, because with the old metrics, we would come to you and say, this is what we're going to do for the money you give us. And then they were using, or we, Public Works, were using old methods. But if you think about from 2021, we created Public Works, and then we create the fee. So you don't have systems in place.
Right.
And then Ernie comes in 22, and then we get Cartograph. So now we have systems in place.
Well, and I think it's important, Ernie, because like right now, it's based on actual impermeable space or surface, right? Mm-hmm. For example.
You're talking about the fee? Yes.
Yeah, I'm talking about the fee, yeah. So I'm just looking to see, because it's what, 50% of a lot size?
Right. If you're talking about the fee, yeah, I don't have the formula memorized, but yes.
Right, but so that's our methodology, right, so to speak.
Right.
So it just seems like we should be looking at something that is a little bit more equitable, because you look at District 2, District 3, smaller lots, bigger lots, I'm sorry. They're larger lots. And the new development, much smaller. I mean, we're doing a lot of 4.5 now, the square feet of the lot, as opposed to the 6,000 square feet. So you have a home that takes up a whole lot more space. Then districts 2 and 3 have the older homes that have the larger lots, bigger yards, and all of that. That's why I bring that up, because I think there's an inequitable factor there, because we're just saying 50%. So I'm just back to the methodology. I would love for us to do something that really shows the cost of service for homes. And maybe we look at the cities above us. What do they do? How do they do it? Right?
Right.
You have to answer that now, but you may know or not. I don't know. Along those lines, though, Peter, I would also ask, I didn't notice that gas was on the list of departments to provide a, their budget or a, oh my gosh, what word am I looking for? Presentation, that's what I'm looking for. So I just wanted to know, again, back to cost of service, if they also, do they have a cost of service as well, a study? Do we do that in gas? And you can bring that back to us.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that question kind of spurred me is because we just bought, the other gas department.
Right, the Rockport.
Right. So I'm very curious about that, and you can send that as a follow-up.
Okay.
And then I'll move on to page 198, Ernie. In our book here, I noticed that you have, we have a 25% mandatory reserve, and you have a reserve of 8 million, roughly, I think, reserved for commitments. Yeah, 8 million. And so we're at 10. I'm sorry, you have 10 total. And I was just curious as to why that's about 30%. And the reason that's important, I love, save extra money, but we're asking for an increase in rates. So could that not go to help our ratepayer if there's an overage of the 25% minimum?
Fund balance can be used to pay any stormwater needs minus the reserve. So the answer is yes. We can't use the reserve, but we can use any unspent fund balance however we need. If it's fund balance that hasn't been allocated for a project, for example.
Right.
Yes.
So how does that fund balance then that can be used to help the ratepayer? I mean, that can be done.
Right. It's a scenario that could be possible.
Well, because it's sitting in this fund, and you must have the 25%, which you do, but there's additional monies, so, and we're asking for rate increases.
Right, there is, and Amy's going to talk about this, but next year, there's a significant debt service payment that's due.
Okay.
And so we're trying to layer in, so there's not big rate shock, a massive rate increase. We know, based on the amortization schedule, that the debt service payment schedule, there'll be a debt service payment. Initially, when this, and Councilman Hernandez is familiar with this, but initially when we moved from water to stormwater, we still funded infrastructure costs for new roads out of this fund, but it became apparent that was not sustainable. This fund should be an operating fund for cleaning, sweeping, that type of thing. So over the past couple of years, we've put all the stormwater costs for new infrastructure in the bond program. But we still do have in this fund too legacy debt over the past 5-6 years or so. And there's a bigger payments are due in these coming years, more so than this year. So the fund balance will be used in '27 to pay for legacy debt.
This one here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what that graph was. If we had an exercise where we only had operational expenses, I wouldn't have to increase the fee. Because the operation is handling everything with the revenue that we currently have. We ran this exercise to see what happens with our capital improvement projects. And then, like the city manager said, our $209 million existing debt. And then we keep on recurring debt for CIP projects every year to do our IDIQs, our channel maintenance, so on and so forth. Well, that every year gets added, and that is where we have to sustain that cost. For all the lines of business that I just showed you, if it was just that and only that, then we wouldn't be increasing the fee.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, and last question. I noticed that your revenues are increasing, but expenditures are decreasing.
Right.
I'm trying to, I can't.
So that's exactly the same point.
Same
So
point.
we're trying our best to reduce the cost of the operation.
Yeah.
And, really making it more efficient. I mean, we're using these systems to do so. But the inevitability is I still need to maintain bridges.
Yeah.
I still need to maintain channels beyond the capabilities of in-house maintenance forces. So, the Caribbean project was a perfect example of that, Caribbean. We went and replaced culverts in the low-lying area. That's nothing we can do in-house. And so we have to go to a capital project for that, and then that's where we incur debt. So those happen a lot faster because they're on CIP, IDIQ. We don't have to bond those and then wait a long time. And so we're able to react and keep the channels and bridges system in functional order. But we cannot do that with our operational resources, and that's where that extra cost
Right.
comes in.
Right, okay, that's it for me, but I want to reiterate again on the cost of service study. I really think, Peter, we need a real one. Look to see what other, I'm sure you know, what other, the 7 cities above us.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
what do they do? And let's do a real one, because I really believe that districts 2 and 3 are at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah, we currently have Raptelis, our consultant, that
Well, more
does
than
that
2
for
and 3,
us.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
especially.
our consultant could do that for us. I misunderstood the question, but if you're talking about, are we getting the service for the fee based on how we're charging? That's an analysis that Raptelis does. We wouldn't get into the details, but it's a high-level type of analysis that they do where they map and they measure impervious surface and all of that.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'd like to look into.
Yes.
Okay, Councilman Hernandez.
Okay, in your stormwater budget, you're asking for an additional 11 people?
No, I'm not asking for anything.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was from 2023, so
Right.
you're keeping it 147?
Same people.
What is your current staffing levels right now?
Right now, let me pull that up for you. Summer sheet, stormwater. Vacancy. So we had some pretty good results here. We had a job fair here recently, and before the job fair, we were at a vacancy rate of 18%. So now we're down to 12 on the stormwater side, and then the streets, we're down to 9.5. So we have active filled right now is 124. We have 142 total FTEs, and we have 18 vacancies.
Okay, stormwater says in your budget 147 FTEs.
Right, and that was after so again, I'm talking about after the job fair, that's to date numbers, it hasn't been, these are
Okay,
just
but
here
you're saying,
recently.
you said you had 142 positions.
Right, total FTEs is 142 in stormwater. But you're not talking about some of the administrative in there, so.
Okay, so you're just
Jason.
talking operational, not administrative. I'm just talking about total. I don't see
Right,
I don't
right,
see your separation, I just see totals.
right.
Okay, you had mentioned, obviously, I made the big effort to try and get the stormwater capitalized in the GO bond in order so you wouldn't have that reoccurring debt paid out of your budget, which is last year was 32 million, you're trying to get it to 35 million, right?
Correct.
But your expenditures are 32 million for proposed budget. And this, when I mentioned that we didn't have the 25% for the enterprise fund, this is considered an enterprise fund?
Correct.
Right? So you didn't have the 25% last year. So what is this, are you trying to get to that reserve balance?
You're saying for the expenditures in fiscal year 26 is 32.2, and you're asking what now?
You're required by our budget policy to have a 25% fund balance, right? Are you going to have that this year?
Yes, we'll have that.
Okay. Are you above that by a certain amount? I mean, how much are you above?
We're above it. I don't have the amount, but I know we had the fund balance number that was keeping us above it.
Okay, your projected fund balance is going to go from 6 million to 10 million, right?
That's after the reserve, yes, sir. So the reserve for contingency is the 25%. It's the 8 million. for
It's the 8
FY.
million, but you're going to have a $10 million ending balance
After the reserve, yes.
after you reserve, right? So you're going to have an additional fund balance of $10 million after the reserve because your ending balance is 18 million,
Correct.
right? So you have $10 million there that you're not utilizing. What,
No, this year, that can go.
this coming year? I
we
mean, you
can
had 6
utilize it.
million last year after your reserve balance of 8 million, right? So kind of, and you're doing that based on expenditures or revenues? On expenditures. So you have lower expenditures, but okay, so just tell me why are you keeping such a hefty balance above your reserve balance requirements?
Right, so the 10 million could go towards debt, right? And and that's what we're anticipating on doing. But our projection for the increase is going to.
But your debt service here is listed as your debt service expense is 6.4 million that you're already accounting for.
Right, so we're looking at about 2027 having the need. We could handle debt 26 and then not increase 27.
Okay, and how much of this debt were for the arterial bond projects?
How much?
Out of your
what?
total debt, how much of it was for previous arterial projects?
I don't have that number, but I just know that in 28, that's when we stop paying for it.
Can we use, and this is probably a question for Peter, can we use that 8 cents, some of that 8 cents funding to cover some of that debt service because it was for arterial projects?
Yeah, the 222, are you talking about the 8 cents?
The 8 cent sales tax that we did.
Oh.
I mean, I fought tooth and nail to get you that 8 cent sales tax, about $9 a year.
1/8 cent, the 8 million, I don't know, Councilman, we'll have to check. I think it talked about new projects, not.
Okay, well, I mean, we're doing some projects now
Yeah.
that were under previous bonds.
Right.
Right?
All right.
Right? They were under previous bonds, but they're new projects. They're just starting construction. And we're doing the stormwater underneath there that we didn't account for within the general obligation bond. I believe anything before 2024 had, were not capitalized.
Right.
Right? So we're just starting a lot of those projects now. Can we utilize that funding for that?
I don't have the answer, so
Okay,
we'll have
so
to look at that.
we need to ask that question because, that's why I fought for that funding, right? So it wouldn't be in this stormwater fee. So it would be utilized for operations. That's why I fought to capitalize
Yeah, that's why we don't do it.
stormwater, right?
Right.
And you'd mentioned that there's some other debt for channel maintenance. Is that for like replacing culverts? What is that?
That's our IDIQ program. That's in our capital improvement program. So if you recall, after the mud bridge, we put together the bridge inspection program.
Okay, so you do that through revenue bonds. What do you do that through?
Through debt service, specifically, I'd have to check, but that's revenue bonds.
Is it through revenue bonds?
Revenue bonds.
Okay, so I need to have some understanding of what that looks like.
Okay.
Because I thought your debt service is mainly through the CIP, projects or for streets and arterials.
Yeah, I want to say we had, was it 16 million of ARPA before? 10 million of ARPA that was handling that. And then now we're going to go and transition into the actual CIP monies.
Well, we have to pay for it.
Right.
Ultimately, it comes out of summer, but ultimately we pay for it.
Correct.
So I want an understanding of that because that was not, I think this is some new information of where we're putting some of the work that you're doing under debt service. It's outside of when I say CIP, outside of the general obligation projects that we're doing through bond projects.
I hear you, yes.
Okay, so I'll have a clear understanding of how that's broken out.
Okay.
And then if we can get some understanding on how much we could use out of that 1/8 cent sales tax funding on those projects.
Right, how and if, I know there was a list of priority projects in the voter's guide, so we have to,
I got that.
I'm just telling, yeah.
This is, how long is that 8 cent sales tax? 20 years?
I think so, but
Okay.
we'll look into it, Councilman, I don't have the answer right now.
Okay, just, what I want to make sure is that we're utilizing this money wisely, so we give him the maximum amount that he can for operations. And then now you can answer the question about why our stormwater folks were cutting trees on
Right.
stores.
Yeah, so our vegetative, or our mowing teams, the long story short is, when you called me and you asked why were we doing that, I'm trying to preserve our sidewalks and our curb and gutter. And so the long way of solving that problem, when a resident along, say, Custoris, the back end of Custoris, if you go to the ordinance says that the resident has to handle mowing on their right-of-way. We would go through code enforcement, who currently is out of money for code enforcement. But the process would be they would go get with the owner and tell them, you have to handle this as per ordinance. If they don't handle it, then we abate. And then, we would have them pay through the process, right, to get them to go to court.
That we would end up putting a lien on the
Correct.
property, which we have. But
So
that's a whole other discussion.
But ultimately, if you drive down any major corridor, you're going to see overgrown either weeds, grass, or whatever into the sidewalk on the curb. Well, I can't preserve those assets when that's happening. And if I go through the process per property to try to get them to do what they're required to by ordinance, then it would take too long, and then I could very well lose more sidewalk, more curb. So what I have our stormwater team doing is before they go, they're going to issue that notice through our environmental inspection teams. They're going to issue that notice to the resident.
Are you issuing citations?
We can, yes,
So issue the citation.
we can, and we do.
Okay, because, I mean, us cutting trees on private property, you know, because it was the backside of that off Costores, it's on private property, and it's in their backyard overhanging the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And I understand by code, which is what code enforcement's supposed to do, but you guys are cutting the actual tree.
Right, and we are issuing,
So issue the citation.
we do, but we're using the MS4 permit to do that.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Paxton?
Thank you, Mayor. If I look on page 345 of our budget book, I'm looking for, okay, there it is. I apologize. 254 of the CIP book, it's showing the CDBG disaster recovery grant, about 7.2 million. Everywhere else that we reference that goes back to the page 345 in the budget book. It looks like, and I think it was referenced actually in your presentation, but I could be wrong. It looks like we're planning on about 1.2 million. Could you explain, is this something that 7.2 is going to be spaced out over years? Is this something that is eligible to be secured annually?
That's previous years. That's previous years, yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Camille Saris, CCW, but prior capital budget manager. So that 7.2 million is for the La Jolla Creek Channel project. It's in prior year because the contract has been signed and the money is encumbered, and actually, I don't know how it's being constructed right now. So, you know, the soil that's coming by 286 that they're depositing over there, that's coming from that project. So that CDBG money is specifically for that. And it's already been encumbered, the contract went to council, has been signed, so that money is being spent.
Okay,
So there's no future usage of that money.
So that 7.2 that's referenced on page
Yes.
254, that was the total grant from years prior?
Yes.
And we've at the stage of the project where that 1.2 is what we're planning on utilizing to complete the project now?
1.2.
That's in our.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay.
That would be
perfect.
our appropriation that we expect to need as far as actual funding of the project in this coming fiscal year.
And does that exhaust out that 7.2, or is this the finality of the use of that project, or we have more coming down the pipeline for that? Yeah, that's it.
I
Okay.
think that's it. That was from a couple of years ago, you know, so it was budgeted then, and there's no more. It was a one-time CDBG source.
Okay.
Disaster.
So if that's a grant for a specific project, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, so we can potentially seek similar, I would assume, similar grants if there's other projects within our scope that may be applicable to.
Correct.
Okay. And then I was curious, when you list in your presentation here, you have weekly mowing on Ocean Drive, that type of thing. Could you explain what that entails or the purpose behind that? I'm sure it relates to stormwater type things,
Right.
but.
Yes, hi. Jason Albert, Assistant Director of Public Works. So the mowing on Ocean Drive is to taking care of the medians, the tree trimmings on the palm trees all along Ocean Drive. Similar to North Beach, the median section that's there, that's running from that pavilion cover, Welcome to North Beach sign that's there. We maintain that whole median inside there. So it's just maintenance purposes on there.
It's maintenance purpose. But it's trees and mowing
It's
for
it's
stormwater.
mainly mowing. The trees we'll do once a year on it, but it's mowing of the medians.
It's more the mowing of the medians and the removal of the vegetation that otherwise ends up into the bay.
I'm just curious because I know that there's a pretty sizable budget amount in Parks and Recs under maintenance for the tourist district, which I've been told is defined as this area.
Right.
Right.
And so if Parks and Recs is doing mowing and trees and maintenance,
They're doing it in the parks only, and then, so there's the Cole Park would be one, if you go further south, Doddridge. So they do park maintenance, mowing in parks. Stormwater does anything in the right-of-way.
Right, from
So the
Louisiana.
medians, yeah.
From Louisiana ABC, Parks takes care of that, we take care of the other section. And that's been a legacy thing that Public Works has been working on since I got there. I mean, it's been right away that we've maintained.
wait, if you had to quantify that specific project to that section, what annually would be the contribution or the commitment?
I don't have that, I can get you that cost, but we can get that. I mean, we have it all mapped out.
Okay, thank you for that. That's my question.
Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. And I am grateful, Mayor, for bringing up that issue about the, basically the subsidizing of some of the smaller lots in the stormwater fee. I had to look back on my emails that was sent back like 3 years ago, because I remember him bringing this up, and he said that in reality, the literature says that it's based on impervious
Cover.
area, right, impervious. But the reality is that after measuring his own personal property and calling the stormwater department, that it was actually based on two, that spoke with the city and found out that they don't charge based on the impervious areas at all, but that your lot size divided by two. Is that still correct?
No, that's not correct.
In conclusion, people with smaller houses, garages, and driveways are being overcharged. So back to the same.
I'm pretty confident that the methodology that we receive from our consultant is sound. The only difference, and we've done the 7 cities check for that aspect of is if you have a property and let's just say you have an impervious cover, that's going to be the basis of the fee. The way the consultant comes up with this cost is they use pretty much measured on a computer and then get that number measurement on the computer. So we don't go physically run a wheel to every single property and then put that in a database and base the number on that. So it could be a plus or minus there. And so sometimes residents do come and challenge the fee, and we do have a process for receiving that challenge and then checking the actuality of that measurement. If it's true and there's a comparable difference, then we'll make an adjustment.
Okay, so it would have to be based and individually, someone would have to actually challenge that stormwater fee. And
Right, we have a process where they do a challenge, and we receive the challenge through our billing department. They comes to us, and then we check the challenge to make sure that.
Okay, but again, I think the mayor does bring up a good point, just to revisit that and making sure that, that this stormwater fee is being done adequately, fairly. So.
No, we have checked with the other cities. Perfect scenario would be if you got a surveyor to go to everybody's property and got meets and bounds on the impervious area and then got that measurement and calculate the rate based on that. But the level of effort would be extreme, for 95,000 plus accounts. But that's not what's happening. They're using, a certain system to measure on a GIS map and then base it off of that.
Okay, but I guess it is good to know that there is a process that they feel that the fee is, more than fair, then, it could be, or
Right.
more, then they could go out and at least protest it.
Right, there has been protests that we've received and then adjusted as a result. And some of them have a good reason, and we make the adjustment based on that, if that's the case.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And just to, and we're done after this, but we would just hire a company, wouldn't you? To go-
Say again?
Hire a company that does that, the GIS and the.
Right. Well, we would see, is it cost effective?
Yeah.
We'd have to do that study.
Y'all
like
will
you
look into
mentioned.
that.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, that is, I think that's everything for today, correct?
Yes, it is, Mayor.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for the.
I'm sorry, just one, Heather came down for Councilman
gonna
Hernandez's
say something.
question on the sales tax, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good morning, Heather Holbert, Assistant City Manager. So the question on the sales tax on the 1/8 cent for stormwater drainage, things like that. So it could not be used for projects that are for debt service for projects that's already been done, that are already existing. The way that the sales tax work is that the project would have to go to the Type B board for approval. Once that project is approved, then the sales tax can be utilized for that. And that sales tax we don't start collecting that until April 1 of 2026. And so we'd have to see what the timing is. If it's something that's already in process, we wouldn't be able to do that. But if it is a new project that is slated for the next year, 2 years, whatever, we could take it to the Type B board for consideration, and then they would, from there, make the decision on whether or not it's something that they would move forward for recommendation.
Okay, so in looking at that, it's like any future debt projects is what I'm referring to, right? Obviously, we're not collecting it until 2026, but anything that comes forward, like he was talking about channel maintenance and associated with I don't know, what box culverts, what are you using? You said an IDIQ.
Yeah, for the IDIQ, we're using it either for box culvert replacement. Sometime we do what's called slip line repairs. So where we don't want to tear open a roadway and pull out the pipe and replace it, we'll go on one end of the system and then put in a membrane where, say, a trunk line is collapsed. And so you'll see them a lot on the island where you have these outfalls into those homes that are off the water. And so you have these outfalls. We cannot go tear through somebody's backyard and empty out their pool or whatever because there's a trunk line going out, from the street into that water. So we'll slip line using this contractor that currently is on this IDIQ CIP project to do that kind of work.
Okay, so Type B money is for economic development, right? So it has some commercial aspect to it. I would say every arterial road we do has a commercial aspect to it. Okay, but what you're talking about may or may not.
Right. Oh, so you're talking about the Type B Prop F funds. That's a different list of projects. I thought you were talking about the IDIQ.
But it's still, we have a list of projects that we're doing it, but there's funding associated with it that is for economic development, right? We've identified some projects, but those things can change over time. That's
sure.
It's not like, that's specifically everything we're going to use it for.
Correct.
So there's some opportunity for you to utilize some of that funding for projects that have some economic development component to it.
Correct.
Right? So I want to make sure that we're looking at it so we're just not, it's just not sitting over here not doing anything.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's what I'm referring to. Like I said, I fought real hard for it. Right, to make sure that you have the money you need for the projects that you need to do it. Make sure you utilize it.
Understood.
Okay? Thank you.
Okay, Heather, okay, you're done. Thank you. No, I just want to thank y'all for, we have one more question, but I am going to thank y'all for the presentation. Thank you for all the work that y'all put into it. I know you have a full team, Ernie. We really appreciate you. We really do, and these are always so informative. And I'm glad that everybody, was able to ask questions. I know we're missing a few people, but nonetheless, they'll get this presentation, delivered to them. And we always invite, of course, anybody that has follow-up questions to reach out to you and by email or phone call. But we really appreciate it, and thank you for being here. Councilwoman Paxson.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make it real quick, just to kind of piggyback off of that last little discussion. I was curious, that is something that we see a lot in District 4, particularly I feel like from what I see and hear around the storm drain circuits, is we will just have those sinkholes where things are just kind of dropping. It's in right-of-ways, it's in the streets, it's in yards. Do we have a system in place where we're evaluating that in this budget, where there's some kind of plan? Because I know in my short time here, I've seen it be popping up a lot as kind of one-offs, but it's really kind of, in my opinion, trended around these storm drains that we're seeing a lot of this. So I was curious if we have something in this plan or in these works to see why is it collected like that? Or maybe you already know the answer and we have a solution to it.
Yeah, so it was actually our achievement number 3, where we go and video proactively the storm drain systems in those, I guess what you would call them, problem areas. And then finding out through that video feedback that it needs to be slip line and we have to do something about it, rather than letting it fail and then finding out we got to come after the fact.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I know it's just kind of the number of occurrences is what's starting to concern me. 'Cause more and more I'm texting you about. So
Sure,
thank you for pointing that piece out. And thank you
ma'am.
for your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, there being no further business, this workshop is adjourned.